Hello. Most people think driving at night is peaceful, and honestly, they're not wrong. The highways empty out, the world goes quiet, and for a few hours, it feels like the road belongs to you and you alone. I used to love that feeling. The dark stretching out ahead like an open invitation, the hum of the engine, the cold coffee in the cup holder. Night driving was my thing, my ritual, my comfort. Until one November, somewhere between Dallas and nowhere, I learned to be afraid of the dark. My name is Cole Merritt, and this is the night I can't forget, no matter how hard I try. It started as a routine drive. I'd been in Fort Worth helping my cousin Danny with some renovation work on his place. Nothing major, just patching drywall and painting the spare bedroom. We finished around 11, ordered pizza, watched half a game, and then I figured I'd head home to Austin. The drive was about 4 hours, comfortable, familiar. I'd done it a dozen times. I hit the road a little after midnight. The first hour was fine. Music on, windows cracked just enough for cool air, a gas station coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since Tuesday. The kind of drive where your mind wanders into strange, comfortable places. I have this habit, always have, of holding full conversations with myself when I'm alone on the road. Not just thinking, but actually talking. Two-sided arguments, imaginary interviews, whole movie scenes I'd rewrite in real time. My therapist once told me it might be my brain's way of managing the silence. Whatever it was, it kept me company. But around the 90-minute mark, the traffic just dissolved. No headlights behind me, no taillights ahead. The highway became a tunnel of black asphalt cutting through flat Texas scrubland, and the only light came from my own beams bouncing back off the road. My phone signal had dropped to nothing. No bars, no data, just a glowing screen connected to no one and nothing. I should have pulled over and slept. I know that now. Instead, I kept driving. I was tired but stubborn. And then, about 20 miles past a town too small to remember, I felt it, a rhythmic shuddering from the rear of the car, a slow, reluctant wobble that you feel in your spine before you hear it. The back left tire, going flat. I checked the dashboard. Sure enough, tire pressure warning, blinking orange. I slowed to 50, then 40, hazard lights on, steering with both hands like I was carrying something breakable. The road out here had no shoulder worth speaking of, just gravel, and then grass, and then absolute darkness. And then, like a miracle, headlights from a sign about 100 yards ahead. Rest stop, gas, diner, 5 miles. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in 10 minutes. I limped the car those 5 miles and pulled into what I can only describe as a place that time had argued with and lost. There was a gas station with 2 pumps under a flickering canopy, a diner with its sign half lit, a tire shop locked up tight with a paper sign on the door that I had to squint to read, back at 8 a.m. It was 1:47 in the morning. I found the gas station attendant, a kid barely old enough to drive himself, and asked about the tire shop. "Yeah, Ray doesn't come in till 8, he said, not looking up at his phone. "Maybe 8:30. I rubbed my face. 6 hours minimum. I asked if there was anywhere nearby to get a room. He pointed west, past the diner. "There's a motel back there, the Rose. Can't miss it." I almost missed it. The building sat back from the road behind a gravel lot, 2 stories of pale brick with dark windows and a sign out front that might once have been red and white, but had faded to the color of old bone. The Rose Motel. The letters were hand-painted in a style that belonged to a different decade. 1 lamp burned above the entrance, a single orange glow that made the shadows around it seem darker by comparison. Every window was dark. Single one. I sat in my car for a moment, engine idling, looking at the place. The lot was empty, no other cars, no movement, the kind of stillness that has weight to it. I told myself I was exhausted and seeing things dramatically. I told myself it was just an old motel, probably run by somebody's grandparents, the kind of place that charged $40 a night and smelled like pine cleaner and old carpet. I told myself to get out of the car. I got out of the car. The lobby was small and dim, lit by a single lamp on the front desk. Behind the desk sat a man in his late 60s, Southeast Asian, thin, with a face that looked like it had seen a long road and walked every mile of it. He had silver hair and wore a button-up shirt that was neatly pressed. When I came through the door, he looked up slowly, the way people do when they're not startled because they expected you. That detail stuck with me later. "You need a room?" His English was careful, accented. "Yes, sir, just for the night. My tire's shot, waiting for the shop to open." He nodded like this explained everything. $60, room 211, second floor. $60. In my state, I would have paid $200. I pulled out my wallet. He took the cash, turned to the pegboard of keys on the wall behind him, and unhooked a brass key with a plastic tag that read 211. He held it out to me. And then, just as I took it, he said something that I brushed off in the moment and couldn't stop thinking about later. "Don't go to the third floor," he said. His voice was flat, not a warning, not a plea, just a fact, stated the way you'd say the elevator's broken or pool's closed for the season. "It's locked up, nothing up there." I looked at him. "Okay, not a problem." He nodded and looked back down at the desk. I headed for the stairs. The stairwell smelled like old wood and something else, a sweetness underneath the dust, like dried flowers or incense gone stale. The carpet runner on the steps was maroon and threadbare at the center. Second floor, long hallway, 5 doors on each side, all closed. The hall light was a single bulb in a frosted fixture, and it threw the kind of yellow light that makes everything look slightly ill. Room 211 was at the far end. I opened the door with the brass key. Inside, 2 twin beds with faded bedspreads, a nightstand between them, a dresser with a mirror above it, and a window overlooking the gravel lot. The mirror had a thin crack running from the upper left corner down toward the center, like a river on a map. The bathroom was shared. Down the hall, the man at the desk had mentioned it when I'd asked. There was a ceiling fan, ancient with a pull chain and blades that wobbled when it spun. No air conditioning unit. But the night was cool, so I turned it on anyway and lay down on top of the covers without taking off my shoes. I was asleep in minutes. I don't know how long I slept before I heard it. Footsteps. Not the normal sounds of an old building settling, not pipes knocking. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, rhythmic, moving down the hallway outside my door. I lay still, listening. The footsteps stopped directly outside room 211. I held my breath. A sound then, keys, or something like keys. A faint metallic scraping, like something being dragged across the lock. I sat up. The ceiling fan wobbled overhead. The room was dark except for the orange glow of the parking lot light coming through the curtain gap. I got up quietly and looked through the peephole in the door. The hallway was empty. That single yellow bulb, the closed doors, the worn carpet, nothing else. I stood there for a full minute, one eye pressed to the glass, before I stepped back and sat on the edge of the bed. Old building, I told myself. Sound travels weird in old buildings. I turned the ceiling fan off. It had started making a grinding noise that set my teeth on edge, and lay back down. I was almost asleep again when I smelled it. Smoke. Not cigarette smoke, something heavier. The smell of burning wood, of something charred. The specific, serious smell that doesn't belong inside a building at 2 in the morning. I sat up and sniffed. It was real. It was coming from inside the room with me. I turned on the lamp and looked around. Nothing burning, nothing singed. The room looked exactly as I'd left it, but the smell was stronger as ever, sharp enough to taste. I went to the window and opened it. Fresh night air flooded in, but the smell didn't leave. If anything, with the fresh air as contrast, it seemed worse. I decided to check the hallway. The hallway was empty and silent. I walked the length of it, pressed my ear to the wall at one point, heard nothing. I went halfway down the stairs towards the ground floor, still nothing. The smell seemed to be following me, or living in my nose, or both. Back in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to reason with myself. Old buildings sometimes had weird odors, creosote in old walls, ancient insulation, previous tenants who smoked. But then the footsteps returned. This time, they were directly above me. Third floor. The floor that was locked. The floor where nothing was. They moved like someone pacing, back and forth across the same stretch of floor. And with them came another sound underneath, a low, intermittent tone that I eventually recognized as a fire alarm. Not a full blare, more like a dying battery beep, faint and irregular, as if it had been going on for so long that it was finally running out of breath. I sat very still. And then, from somewhere above me, not the same direction as the footsteps, but somewhere else, I heard crying. A child. Soft, exhausted, the crying of a child who has been at it for a long time and is running out of energy to continue. I heard it clearly. One cry, then a pause, then a soft whimper. I was on my feet before I decided to stand up. The man at the front desk looked up when I appeared at the bottom of the stairs. His face hadn't changed from when I'd checked in. Same stillness, same careful composure. "There's a smell, smoke, and I'm hearing sounds from the third floor. Is something wrong up there?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Go back to your room. It's cold outside." "I'm sorry?" "Cold outside. Go back to your room. You're safe." There was something in his voice that wasn't quite right. Not threatening, not unkind, but flat in a way that didn't fit the moment. The kind of calm that belonged to someone who had already accepted something that hadn't happened to you yet. I tried again. "Sir, I heard a child crying, above, and there's a fire smell. Go back to your room." Same tone, same flat certainty. His eyes were on me but seemed to be looking through me, fixed on something I couldn't see. I stood there for a moment, then turned and went back up the stairs. I didn't sleep after that. I lay on the bed and listened to the building breathe around me. The footsteps continued overhead, irregular but persistent. The smoke smell intensified and then faded, and then came back stronger than before. Once, I heard what sounded like a door slamming somewhere above. Not a sharp slam, but a heavy, resonant boom that shook the floor slightly under my bed. And once, just once, I heard something that made every hair on my arm stand straight up. Someone said my name. Not from outside the door, not from downstairs, from above, from the third floor, in a voice that was quiet and clear, and neither male nor female, and it said, "Cole," the way you say a name when you're looking directly at the person. I was off the bed and had my hand on the door handle before I knew I'd moved. The stairwell to the third floor was the only one in the building with a door, a heavy metal fire door, the kind you see in commercial buildings with a push bar across the middle. The other two floors just opened onto the hallway. Only the third floor had that door. I stood in front of it for a long time. The sounds from the other side were clearer here. The footsteps, the muffled alarm tone, and the crying, the child's crying, closer now, more distinct, with a desperate quality that I couldn't rationalize away. I pushed the door open. The heat hit me first. The third floor hallway was warm, not uncomfortably warm, but noticeably warmer than the rest of the building, like stepping into a room where a fire has recently been burning. The air smelled thick with char and something metallic underneath. The lights up here were all dead. My phone, battery down to 4%, gave me a pale white beam as I stood in the doorway. "Hello?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Is anyone up here?" Silence. I stepped in. The hallway up here was different from the second floor. The wallpaper was peeling in long strips. The carpet had dark stains, irregular shapes that I didn't examine closely. 3 doors, all closed. The middle one had a gap at the bottom, and the char marks around its frame were not subtle. Black scorching, radiating out from the edges in patterns that no amount of age or water damage could produce. That door had burned from the inside. And from behind it, faint but real, impossibly real,
the sound of a child breathing. I had my hand on the door handle, and then my phone died. Complete darkness, the kind that has texture. I stepped back, my foot caught on a ridge in the carpet, and I grabbed the door frame to steady myself. In the total dark, the sounds around me seemed to amplify. The breathing behind the door, a creak somewhere deeper in the hallway, the low, persistent moan of that alarm somewhere in the walls. And then the smell became overwhelming. Not the lingering char of old damage, the sharp, immediate, unmistakable smell of something burning right now. I ran. Down the stairs, both hands on the banister, not looking back. Through the second-floor hallway, down the main stairs, through the lobby, which was empty now. The man at the desk was gone, his lamp still on, his chair pulled back as if he'd just stood up. I hit the front door and went through it into the cold night air. I sat on the hood of my car and tried to breathe normally. The Rose Motel sat in front of me, dark and still. That one orange lamp above the entrance, the faded sign, the empty parking lot. I tried my car. Nothing. Dead battery, exactly as it had been. The key turned to the sound of a single dying click. I thought about the gas station, the kid with the phone, the diner. I thought about the third floor. And I thought about the name, Cole, spoken clearly from a floor where nothing lived and no one was supposed to be. I sat there for a long time, long enough for the sky to go from black to the deep blue that comes before dawn, long enough for the temperature to drop another few degrees and my breath to start showing in small clouds. I was still sitting there when headlights appeared on the highway. A truck, an 18-wheeler, reducing speed as it came toward the gas station. I flagged it down. The driver, a heavy-set man in his 50s with a Corpus Christi baseball cap, rolled down his window. "You stuck?" "Dead battery and a flat. I've been here since 1:30. He looked at my car, then at the motel behind me, and something crossed his face that I can't fully describe. A tightening, a recognition. "You stayed at that place?" "I tried to. I couldn't really sleep." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "You know about that motel?" "What about it?" He put his truck in park and climbed down. He was the kind of man who had the air of someone who'd driven every highway in the state and knew the stories that collected along the way like dust. "That place burned," he said, "about 12 years ago. Whole family, traveling family, parents, 3 kids. The youngest was just a baby, barely a year old." He looked at the building. "The way I heard it, there was an accident, something electrical. Fire started in one of the rooms, spread fast." He paused. "The mother and 2 of the older kids didn't make it. The father got the baby out. The oldest kid, teenager, he made it out too." He shook his head slowly. "Place been closed ever since. State condemned it. They were supposed to tear it down, but I don't think they ever did." The cold settled into me like water. "The family," I said slowly. "They were in room 211? He looked at me with an expression I still think about. "That's the room," he said. "That's exactly the room." Here's what I didn't tell the truck driver. Here's the part I've only told a few people since. When I was sitting on the hood of my car in the dark before the sky started to lighten, I heard one last sound from the motel. It came from the second floor, from the hallway outside room 211. A ceiling fan spinning up to speed. A ceiling fan that I had turned off before I fell asleep. A ceiling fan in an empty room in a condemned building that had no power supply anyone living could have activated. I've spent 12 years thinking about the Rose Motel, about the man at the front desk who told me to go back to my room with eyes that held no light, about the locked third floor and the heat that had no business being there, and a child's voice calling my name in the dark. I've looked it up. The fire was real. It happened in the fall 12 years ago. A family from Fort Worth passing through on their way to San Antonio. The official report listed the cause as an electrical fault, origin point, room 211. The mother and 2 daughters died of smoke inhalation. The father and his infant daughter survived. The teenage son, the oldest, he survived too. He has never spoken publicly about that night. Some doors once opened don't close again the same way. Some places don't let you leave without taking something from you, a piece of your certainty, a corner of your confidence that the world is ordinary and explainable and safe. And some names, spoken in the dark by voices with no mouths, stay with you longer than any nightmare. I drove away from the Rose Motel as the sun came up, following the truck driver to a proper repair shop 40 miles up the highway. I had the tire replaced, the battery charged, and I drove the rest of the way home in daylight. Every mile felt like coming up for air. I never drove that stretch of highway at night again. But sometimes, in the quiet between sleeping and waking, I hear it, one clear syllable in a voice I don't recognize. Cole. And I know, with a certainty I can't explain and have stopped trying to, that whatever called my name in that hallway was not calling to be heard. It was calling to be found.
And that was the night I stayed at the Rose Motel, a place that shouldn't exist anymore, a room that should have been empty, and a voice that knew my name. I still don't know what would have happened if I opened that door. Now I want to ask you something. If you were in my place, would you have opened the door on the 3rd floor, or would you have walked away? Be honest. Let me know down in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoy stories like this, stories that stay with you long after they end, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because the next one might be even more disturbing.